Hey, badass business owners. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to kind of share what's on my mind. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tammy, and I'm here to help you grow your business, but more importantly, grow those profits. And since it is the beginning of the year at the time that I am recording this, I get to have a lot of conversations with different people about their goals and what they see for their business for this coming year. And one of the things that really stands out to me is there seems to be like a couple different camps. One of the camps are people that really are fired up. They know what they're going to accomplish. They've got goals for themselves. They know what their sales goals are. They know what they're shooting for on profits. They know what parts of their business need to be tweaked and need to be changed, and they're going to work on that. They have an idea. Now, whether they're successful with it or not, time will tell, and we'll know more by the end of the year. But at least they're going into it with an idea of what it is they want to accomplish. They may not know how they're going to accomplish it. They may or may not have a plan. In some cases, people will have a very definitive plan of what they're going to do each week, very organized, stuff like that. But then there are other people that have these really good ideas and goals, but they're kind of more fuzzy when it comes to how they're going to do it, right? They haven't really put together the plan. They just know these are the things they want to work on. And for those individuals, the biggest thing that they can do is to sit down and break those goals down into mini actions that they're going to take along the way so they can kind of use them as mile markers, if you will, of the progress that they're making on said goals. And we're going to come back to this in a little bit because I'm sure I'm just going to kind of bounce around. But I want to make sure that I touch on the other group of people that I've been talking to. And the other group is on the other side of it, right? They know they want to do things in their business. They know they want to improve their business. But when you talk to them about, hey, what are you going to do in your business? What are your goals? They're very fuzzy, right? They're not even at the stage of putting together what the milestones are going to be because they're just like, well, I want to do more in sales. Okay, what's that look like? Well, I want to do more in profit. Okay, what's that look like? Because you know why? They don't understand and know what those numbers were from the year prior or any time prior. They just know they want to do more, right? Their gut is telling them, I want to do more. And that's great. But if you don't come up with what that even looks like, forget how you're going to do it. What does it even look like? You're not going to achieve that. And if you do, it's just dumb luck because you just happen to be at the stages of your business that you're just growing and you just happen to be making a lot of the right decisions. And when you do that, sometimes we feel like we're invincible and we're doing great. And the reality is, no, your business just hasn't hit you and knocked you for a loop yet to where you have to stop and figure crap out. Right? And sometimes people can have blind luck for a year. Some people can have blind luck for 5 years. And then one day, boom, it hits them. And it hits them hard because they just thought if they kept doing what they were doing, the business was going to continue to grow. They didn't need to know their numbers. They didn't need to know what was going on. They didn't have to figure out anything because everything was just falling into place for them. They just happened to have blind luck with hitting a need that was needed in their community, and maybe people started referring them, maybe they got referrals, whatever. But at the end of the day, they still do not have their arms around their business. And I always look at businesses that have done that for like 5-6 years, and I think, oh my God, do you know how successful you could have been had you been paying attention to your numbers from the very beginning? And, they're like, oh, it's great. I've made 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 a month, 40,000, even 75,000 a year. And I'm doing great. And I think to myself, you could have doubled that. That's the sad part. They don't even realize they could have doubled it because they are in this season of dumb luck where they just continue to go. Now, then there's another group of people. They have no idea. Right? They could be losing money and they still don't pull their head out their butt. They still think if they keep doing what they're doing, something is magically going to change in their business. And all of a sudden they're going to start making some money. They don't know what's broken in it. If I ask them, hey, what do you need to fix in your business? I don't know. I guess I could be better at this. Okay, well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. It really is this unsureness of what the next steps are and what they're going to do. Now, don't get me wrong. No matter which one of those 4 buckets you fall in, it doesn't make you a bad business owner. It makes you an uninformed business owner. And at some point, you will get smacked because you're going to get smacked so hard that you either are going to have to shut down your business or make some serious changes in your business. And hopefully by the time you make the choice, to make changes in your business, it's not too late, because some people hit that wall. It doesn't matter what they do, it's not going to change. The other thing that some people have to understand is you can start to right the ship, but you've got it so far off course, it's not changing tomorrow. You can start doing everything correctly the very next day, and it's still going to take you time to make money. And it is because you probably aren't priced correctly. Your processes are probably really screwed up. Your payroll is probably out of whack if you happen to have people, or you're the hardest working person and you're already working 80 hours a week in your business. And you're thinking, when am I going to be able to work on my business? How am I going to carve out that time? So sometimes we've gotten ourselves so far deep, we just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm going to tell you, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are people that I work with that, if we go back to a year or two ago, they did not think they were ever going to see the light of day. And here it is 2 years later, and now they're back positive. They're growing. They can see the future. Are they where they want to be? Maybe not. Probably not, because they got themselves so far off track that at least now they can breathe. And that's where sometimes people have to understand is you can turn your business around to the point where you can breathe. That doesn't mean you're going to start making the big bucks, quote unquote, as we say, for a while, because you just you spent years digging a hole. You don't get to fill that hole up in less time. It's the same way of losing weight, guilty, right? And, we spend years getting big and we want it to go away tomorrow and we don't see those results. It's like, oh, okay, way too much work. And it's like, nope, it spent years to get there. It's going to take you a few years to get out of there. Same thing with your business. Same thing with any habit that you've got or any kind of hole that you dig for yourself. But here's the thing that they all have in common is you've got to have a plan. You got to at least not be fuzzy on what it is that you want, right? So it all starts with saying, what's a stretch goal, something that is achievable, that you can do. Don't tell yourself you're going to go from losing money to making a ton of money, because you're not going to do that overnight. But what you can do is say, I'm going to stop the bleeding. And then once I stop the bleeding, I'm going to start making X profit. Depends on your business, right? But it all starts with, you got to do a few things. One, you got to be honest with yourself. I honestly do not understand my numbers. I honestly do not have the first clue what I'm doing in sales. I honestly don't know if I am priced correctly. I honestly don't know what processes are broken in my business. Be honest with yourself, because being mad at me for telling you that's not going to help you either, right? Because I'm just this casual observer from the outside who can see all the red flags. And I just want to tell you that. Now, this doesn't come because somebody got mad at me, but I've had this happen to me over the years where someone wants to know more about their business. They want to know where they should go, but they hate the advice. They absolutely hate it. And you know why they hate it? Because they don't want to do the work, right? They can't see the finishing line. They can't see how this doesn't get fixed like this, but they'd rather spend the next year being miserable still, as opposed to being miserable, at least fixing it. You're going to be miserable either way. You might as well be miserable in the way that makes the business better, right? And for some people, that's just a hard truth that they're not ready to get. So step number one is you really do need to admit that you have a problem that you need to fix. The second thing you need to do is you need to dive in and at least have a starting point. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if I'm about to say, hey, I want to make my business better, no matter where I am on the scale of things, the first thing I have to understand is what just occurred or what has been happening. This happens to be at the beginning of the year, but if you're listening to this or watching this and it's August, you do the exact same steps. What's been going on? What's been happening over the last 12 months that I need to understand? And then I need to look at those numbers and have that sobering moment, if you will, of, wow, okay, I'm not as good as I thought. Now, some people are going to have, wow, I'm better than I thought. And if you find out I'm better than I thought, but where's my money? That's a good place to start. Or it might be, wow, I understand why I have no money. I ain't got no sales. Right? So the first thing is to know exactly where you're at. And if you've got numbers and you've got good bookkeeping, go look at that P&L. It's going to tell you tons of information. It's going to tell you where you're spending your money. And if it's showing you, hey, I'm doing pretty good with my business expenses, but I still don't have any money, then you got to start going, where's that money going? Where are those owner's draws? What am I pulling that money out for? Am I doing personal things out of my business left and right? And I just, I have to eat somewhere every single day and I have no problem spending 20, 25 bucks a day buying me food. Well, that adds up. You're going to lose thousands of dollars every single year on doing that. Be realistic with yourself, especially when someone goes from not making money to making a ton of money. Oh, wow. Those are the worst abusers of personal expenses inside of their business because they just say, hey, there's all tons of money in here. I can go buy this. I can do that. And they fall into this thing where they're not managing their money. They're not budgeting their money. They're not watching it. Whereas, when we only have so much money in our bank account at home for our personal stuff, we tend to watch what we spend it on, right? Well, if your bank account, your business account is sitting at $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, I got money, and they'll go spend it on things they normally never in a million years would have spent it on, which is why you want to account for it going into your personal account. Then you at least know what's going on with that money and you're going to spend it a little bit differently, right? So business numbers is a great place for someone to start figuring out what's going on. And if you've got a mess and you don't know what's going on in there, you're going to have a plan. That's one of your plans. How am I going to clean this up? How am I going to make it better? How am I going to get this to where I can understand what it is I'm looking at? And it might be free. It might cost you some money. It might cost you some time if you're going to do it. You might have to pay someone to help get you out of that hole. But don't be mad at the fact that you might be spending some good money to get it fixed. But if you use the information once it gets fixed, you're going to make a lot more money, right? It's going to be good money spent to clean that mess up because now you've got information that you can use to help your business get even better. Okay. So don't get mad at the messenger who's saying, hey, look, you got a mess here for the last few years. And if you want me to clean this up, it might be something. So that's another one. But then the next step comes in. It's like, okay, now I've got my numbers. Now I kind of understand. I need to look at my pricing. Am I priced right? What am I using for my pricing? Do I even know how much I make? Because so many people make the cardinal mistake of saying, well, you know what? My costs are, $100. And if I sell it for $200, I'm going to make money. Not if your expenses are out of control, because you might double what your costs are. And that looks good in the beginning, 50% margin, right? I'm making double kind of what it is. But if you're spending like a drunken sailor on a weekend, you're going to spend all that money on the back end when it comes to your expenses. So it's really important you look at your pricing, because your pricing isn't to punish the customer for your bad business. So sometimes you have to kind of look in the mirror and say, look, this is the right pricing based off of what it is I do, what it is that I provide, and what the market is. I need to get my expenses under control. And sometimes I think because I teach people to make sure you're looking at your expenses that come off of your pricing, you think that it gives you the right to be able to charge your customers some crazy number. There are people out there losing business because they're way overpriced, right? And you've got to find that sweet spot of people wanting to use your business. But instead you look at it and go, well, I can't change my prices. These people, this is what I need to be able to survive. Well, you also need customers to survive. You also need people to use your business. So should you have 100%, if everybody is taking your price and not even blinking, yeah, you're probably underpriced. But if you're being turned away by the vast majority of people that you're doing bids for or offering your services, the odds are you're probably overpriced, right? So they are going to look, people are going to be conscious about their money. You're conscious about your money and where you spend your money, right? Unless you're that drunken sailor, I guess. But at the end of the day, what you need to do is you need to find that sweet spot when it comes to your pricing. And then you need to back into it and say, am I priced for profits? Am I priced for costs and materials and supplies and all that other stuff? Because most of you are spending money on supplies you don't really need. It's just, once again, I got money in the bank, so I am free to do what it is that I want to do with that money. And once again, we spend the money. So look at the numbers, make sure you dive into it, look at your pricing, right? So we've got that down. Now, once you look at your pricing, you got to have a plan on how you're going to roll out this new pricing. I'm going to tell you right now, when you figure out you need new pricing, you start immediately with all new customers, okay? Immediately. There's no hemming and hawing and am I going to do it in 3 months, 2 months? New people should start on your new pricing as soon as possible. Now, will that work 100% of the time? Probably not. But for 90% of the time, you can start your new pricing immediately. The question becomes, what do you do with your past customers and clients? If I have reoccurring people, they pay me every month for whatever it is that I do, then yeah, you want to probably put together a plan and a communication plan and let them know that your prices are going to be going up or changing and what's going on. You don't owe them like this long dragged out story as to why. Most people understand. It's just be honest with them, give them the opportunity. Because here's the thing, if you're not making money on them now, I promise you, once you get rid of them, most of you will stop working for free, or you're worrying about losing $5. Yes, the service might be $120, but the profit at the end of the day was $5. So that's really what you're holding on to. And most people, by the way, they're never going to like you changing their prices. If you change somebody $5, $10, they're never going to like it. That doesn't mean they're going to quit. What most people do is they'll moan and groan and not like it. But if they enjoy the service and they enjoy what you do and how you do it and the quality of the service you provide, they're going to stay with you. Okay. I have a few people that do things for me on a monthly basis. I bitch and moan every single time they change their prices. And at some point I may jump, but I can tell you for now, as long as I am satisfied and happy with what it is, I will moan and groan and then I will just pay it. Okay, that's just what we're going to do. But there will become a tipping point of, is it worth it for me to pay that money? It may be that they're providing a service for me that I could do myself, but I just do it because then I don't have to worry about it. There will become a tipping point for most people that, yeah, I'll just do it myself. That doesn't mean they'll do it forever for themselves, because they're going to realize really quickly in a few months why they pay someone else to do it. And maybe they'll come back to you and say, you know what, can I hire you back? Kind of a thing. And then some people, yeah, they might go out and find somebody who's cheaper. But if they're only looking for cheap, then you've got to kind of ask yourself going, okay, if I'm losing a bunch of people because I raised my prices, why? You know, is it just because somebody wants something cheaper? Believe it or not, there's going to be some people that do that, but most people aren't like that. You know, if somebody's always looking for the cheap, they're going to go find the cheap. You were going to lose them anyways. It was just a matter of time before somebody came in who offered what it is that you do for cheaper than you. If you lose a bunch of people because you raise your prices $5, you have more of an internal problem, which means people were not seeing the value already of what it is that you do for them, that it was so easy for them to jump ship. Okay. They might be frustrated with you behind the scenes and just never say anything. And the minute you raise your price, they're like, oh, cool. This gives me an excuse to get out. Sorry, I just don't want to pay that price. But all you hear is cheap, cheap, cheap. They just don't want my price. And the reality is they were firing you quietly. You know, you got that quiet quitting. Well, this is quiet quitting from a customer's perspective, where they were looking for an excuse to get rid of you because they just weren't satisfied. Maybe you were showing up late on a regular basis. Maybe you weren't cleaning up after yourself on a regular basis. Maybe just the way you communicated them was poor. Maybe they just didn't like whatever. It didn't matter. They were not satisfied with you, which is one of the reasons they moved on. Because if people love somebody, most people are very loyal. Okay. Yes, there's a group of people that are just cheap and cost basis, but a lot of people are very loyal because they don't want the time and energy to have to go find someone new to do whatever it is that you probably do. So if you have regular people, keep that in mind next time you lose a bunch of people. And if you're that worried about raising your prices, it means you don't have the confidence in yourself that you have a great relationship with your customers. And you need to ask yourself, that could be one of the systems you need to work on, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Those may be one of the systems that you need to work on because your communication with them is maybe not the best. Or maybe you just know, I'm so swamped, I never get to follow up with them. Maybe a simple email to them or a simple text message to them. Or, you know, for example, my pool guy, right? He sneaks in, does his thing and gets out. No other communication with them. It's never bad. I mean, if there's something that needs done. So I couldn't say that I'm not happy with the overall service. My pool looks great and everything else. But when you say, hey, how could you make that just one step higher? To me, it would be what my pest control person does. My pest control person always gives me a heads up. Hey, we're about to be there. We're going to do your service. And then I get another one right when they're done. See, I like that. That tells me that, hey, I care. I'm letting you know I'm here. Hey, I'm letting you know when I leave. Both people do a great job, but one's customer service goes a little bit higher than the other. And when that pest control business has raised its prices a couple different times over the last few years, don't like it, like I said, but I like the service that I get with them. If the pool person did it, I don't know. I don't know what I would do, right? Because I'm happy, so probably still not like it. But at the end of the day, would I be, oh my God, I just love them. I really need to keep them. I can't say that I am. I'm indifferent, if you will. And something as simple as communication, saying, hey, I'm coming in, and hey, I'm leaving. Everything looks great. Your pool's awesome. Everything looks great. Whatever. Just simple communication can make a huge difference. And honestly, it only takes a minute or two. And some of you that say, oh, it takes too long for me to do that. If I got 10 customers a day, I got it. Okay. It's going to add another half hour to your day at most. As you sit in your car, just text them and tell them about their house. I promise you it will go a long way when you're done. I don't care what it is that you do for them. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, the other thing I want you to look at when you're looking at your business and how can I take it to the next level, right? We've looked at pricing. We looked at knowing your numbers. We've looked at, communication. We've talked about other things, right? But one of the other things that is commonly left out of people's game plans is what is broken in the business. If you sat down and you wrote down everything that was broken in your business, you probably would come up with a laundry list of things to do. But most of the little things are what I call ankle biters, are because something bigger isn't done. If you've got poor communication, it's going to create a whole group of sub things that are under communication. So what you want to do is work on the big thing. And you might say, hey, this year, my main goal is to create the best communication possible in my business. One big goal, but it's going to tackle a bunch of little things. And what you do is then you sit down and you say, okay, communication, what does that look like? Where is it broken under communication? And then what are the pieces that I can do? I have a few clients that I work with that we've done that very thing. We call it the year of, right? And during that year, they've picked a certain part of their business and they just work on that part. So they're overall, they're doing pretty good. They have a successful business, but they want to keep elevating it up and taking it to the next level. So every year they pick something. It could be marketing and they spend the whole year marketing. It could be people and how to make better people, and they spend the whole year on how to do that. It could be communication and they spend the whole year working on that. So pick something in your business that is going to be a big thing for you to work on for the year. And it could be broken down by quarter, that, hey, during the first quarter, I'm going to work on this. The second quarter, I'm going to work on this. It could be the entire plan and its little pieces, and you just follow up on it, whatever it may be. Because really, that leads to one of the last parts I want to talk about. But before I do, let me just go on with this, is just pick something in your business that needs to be improved. Whether it's pricing, whether it's advertising, whether it's marketing, people, just whatever it is. It could be how you purchase materials. You want to improve on that. It could be your scheduling and how you schedule and whatnot. There is something major in your business. I don't care how successful you are. You could be scraping by. You could be really successful. There is a piece of your business that you know that if you improved it, you would do even better. And I want you to think about what that is. And then that leads us to the last part that's really important, because remember, we talked about all these different buckets of where people fall and what it is that they could be working on in their business, right? Their goals, right? We set our goals. We've got very specific goals all the way down to no goals at all, right? With different people. But the important thing is the how. How are you going to get there? You can want to do more sales. You can want to have more profit. You could want to have a better communication, whatever the case may be. You can want all those things. But if you don't have a plan of how you're going to get there, you might stumble across it. You might get partly there, whatever the case may be. But I really want you to sit down and say, okay, what are the 3 or 4 things that I really can focus on that will make a difference on that goal that I've set for myself? Then you have to take those 3 or 4 things and then break them down as well. So it's really breaking down. If my annual goal is to drive more sales, or my annual goal is better communication, then what you need to do is say, okay, well, I'm going to do these 3 things that I'm going to work on. I'm going to work on these 3 things. Then you have to ask yourself, what is it something that I can do this month that will make that goal come true? Then ask yourself, if that's my monthly goal, what's something I can do this week that is going to make a difference? And a good habit to have is every Sunday night is to sit down, or you can do it at the end of Friday, into Saturday, it doesn't matter, right? But sit down and say, these are the things I'm going to do this coming week that are non-negotiables that I'm going to accomplish. And don't just make it a weekly goal. In some cases, just say on Monday, I'm going to do this, Tuesday, this, Wednesday, whatever. But keep breaking it down to where it's so manageable that it takes 10, 15 minutes, a half hour for you to make progress on it. Because a lot of times what we find is we put something off, master procrastinator over here, okay? We put things off only to find out it took us 5, 10 minutes to do. And the reason we never did it is because we kept saying, later, I'll get to it, right? And the reality is, if you just knew you had to do it before you went home on Monday, trust me, you would take that 10 minutes and you would get that dumb thing done, right? You might be 6 o'clock at night and you might be tired and you're like, oh, I promised myself I was going to do this. Let me go do this. And you're done. 10, 15 minutes. Or do it first thing in the morning, right? Knock it out right away and then you get it done. I myself am going to go back to this because it's one of those things that I know make a difference. How many times in our business do we have things that we know work, but over time we stop doing? And if we just would get back to doing what it is that we did before when it worked, we would continue to be successful, right? There's so many things that we stop because we know it works. And we just shake our heads going, oh my God, if I just got back to doing this, I would make a difference. Because what happens is we wake up a month later and then we're frustrated and mad at ourselves because we didn't make any of the progress, and then we throw our hands up and we walk away. Okay. That's why resolutions and a lot of ideas people have at the beginning of the year, why they're no longer doing them, is because they get frustrated, right? They're not making the progress. Every day is a new day to start. It doesn't matter. Just start. Okay, I screwed up. Okay, I didn't do it. I'm going to start doing it now. This is what I'm going to do. And you've got to be specific, and you've got to give yourself some timelines and some deadlines. If you're a procrastinator like I am the queen of getting things done at the last minute if I have a deadline. But my deadline has to be more than because I said so, right? If it's a deadline that I set for myself, I'll blow through that all day long. Right? But if I have a commitment to someone else or to another individual or to whatever, I am more likely to get that done. So make a commitment or have somebody else that's your accountability buddy or whatever. But for me, for example, like let's take these videos, right? By the time Sunday comes around, I've already worked 12-hour days for the last 6 days. Do you think I want to sit down and make a video or do a podcast? No. But you know what? Every Sunday morning, I know I commit to you guys that I'm going to be here and I'm going to do it. And you know what? Every Sunday, well, most Sundays I'd say, I think I've missed a couple here or there, but every Sunday I make sure that I do this video and this podcast. I make sure that I know because you guys are waiting for it. I don't care if it's one of you or thousands of you. I made a commitment to be here and I'm going to do it. It's that accountability piece, right? So for you in your business, you have to ask yourself, I'm doing this for who? In most cases, you could be doing it for your family. You could be doing it for your kids and their future. You could be doing it for something big that you want to get. Maybe you're trying to get a house and you want to get as much money as you can. It could be that you're doing it for your customers because you just know that these people need what it is that you have and your commitment is to them. I mean, I've told the story in the past about my Baskin when I had the ice cream shop and everything in my town was closing down, and I should have done the same thing because of how many people moved out of the town. You know what? I stayed open for people because I didn't want them to lose their ice cream shop. Dumbest thing I could have done, but I had a purpose and a reason, right or wrong, but it's what kept me going during the times when I knew I probably could have and should have went a different direction. So whatever the case may be, I want you to find someone, something, some reason as to why you need to get this thing accomplished. So when you're looking at those goals that you set for the month, for the week, for the day, just remember the why. Why are you doing it? What is the purpose of it? Use it as the drive for you to get it done. So you got to tie into something. Listen, I know I've brought up a ton of stuff on this throughout this episode. And, I just, like I said, it's been on my mind. I've wanted to have this conversation, and I'm realizing that I want to try to communicate a little bit more and talk a little bit more about some of these topics and go into a little bit more detail of what I'm thinking and the why. Because sometimes I think I used to do that at the beginning of the podcast when I first started doing it. And then I kind of shortened them up over the years to do more of get in, get out, get you the information that you need. But I think it's important that we have a dialogue. And even though I'm doing all of the talking, I know that you're sitting there listening or driving or working out or doing whatever, and you're having that conversation in your head at the same time. Because I know that's what I do when I listen to podcasts, right? I can't tell you, there are certain people that when I listen to their podcast, I have some of my biggest aha moments and things that I need to do differently. And I want to be that for you guys in your business. So while we're still going to continue to have a heavy slant on your business numbers, and you're going to hear me preach it over and over and over because your numbers are so critical to your business, I want to make sure that we're talking about how these numbers impact so much of your business and so much of your success and so much of your sales and your profits and everything else. We're going to still have a very heavy slant on knowing your business numbers, but at the same time, having more of a dialogue between us, you in your head, me here as you're listening, of how we can help you really take your business to the next level, okay? Because that's really what we want to do. So for now, I want you to take what it is that we've talked about today when it comes to goals and how you're going to implement those and knowing your numbers tied to those goals, and not just be fuzzy on any of this, right? You need to know the numbers behind the goal and why you're doing it. I promise you, even if you're working on communication, it ties into those business numbers, right? Because I can't increase my sales. I can't increase my profits. I can't do my pricing stuff if I have poor communication in my business. My sales could be totally suffering if I have poor communication in my business. If my website doesn't lead people to call me or get a hold of me, it's going to impact my sales and my profits. Everything works together, and we're going to talk a lot about that in 2026. That is the main focus I want to try to have over this course of this next year, is really tying everything together to help you. But you've got to have purpose. You've got to have more than just, I want this. You know what? Hey, I want to be a millionaire, multimillionaire, making tons of money every single month and, lose a bunch of weight and be able to only work 3 hours a day. Ain't going to happen unless I don't put a plan together, right? So you can have all the goals that you want, whether it's personally or for your business, but none of them are going to come true without you having a plan. And that's the biggest message I want you to walk away with today, is I want you to walk away with, I need a plan. I need to not be fuzzy. I need to understand my numbers. I need to understand my goals. I need to understand what I'm working on. I need to know what it is that I'm going to specifically do to make a difference in my business over the next few months. Can you make that commitment to yourself? You're not making it to me, right? You're not making it to me. You're making it to yourself. You're making it to your family. You're making it to your kids. You're making it to your customers. You're making it to somebody else, and you need to really do that. All right, I'm going to get off of my preaching here, and I'm going to stop, and we will talk more next week. But for now, really think about this and make a difference, because those of you that are superstars and the badasses that I think you are will do some of this, if not all of it. Okay? Just take those steps. That's all I'm asking. And with that, I'm going to get out of here, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.